Josh's Severe Weather, thank you for joining me here on this Saturday. I'm an independent meteorologist in the Raleigh area. I apologize, you regulars. I thought I was going to be able to get to a video yesterday. It was Valentine's Day. I totally forgot. I have a wife and daughter, so that was what my focus was on. But now we've got to talk about some unsettled weather this weekend with a big severe weather outbreak later today and tonight. Lots of ice and snow into the Northeast, but that's not going to be it. And this video is going to focus on not just this current storm, but one that has the potential to make up for lost snow in the Northeast by the time we get to the middle and second part of next week. Right now, looking very juicy and very cold. So the potential for a major winter storm and maybe even a historic winter storm is starting to climb. So we're going to explore kind of what the models are showing, what can change in the coming days. So I appreciate you joining me here. I'm going to share my screen with you so that we can take a look together here at what is going on. And first, we're going to take a look at how temperatures are behaving. As you can see, the cold air is very quickly advancing southward across the Dakotas and Plains. We've dropped 30 to 35 degrees from where we were at this time yesterday afternoon in portions of eastern Colorado and western Kansas. At the same time, it is warming up very quickly across Texas and Louisiana, and that warm air coming out of the Gulf of America is feeding into a powerful storm system, which is likely to trigger a severe weather outbreak here as the day unravels and as we head into tonight. That advancing air, increasing wind flow aloft, and humid conditions as well. And that is going to also continue to feed moisture up into Kentucky and Tennessee, where it's been raining very hard, and flooding woes are going to continue, unfortunately, here in the next 24 hours. Right now, you can see the contrast where that front is set up. Temperatures are soaring into the 70s all the way up into southeastern Arkansas. Meanwhile, Little Rock's only 45, so it only takes about 100 miles to see that 30-degree difference. But at the same time, the cold air is advancing quickly southward into North Texas, where temps are in the 20s and 30s in the Panhandle. Meanwhile, it's close to 90 degrees near the Mexican border here. So a very dynamic storm system. Temperature changes are extreme here, and not just what it is being recorded, but what it feels like with the wind. We have wind chills of 20 to 30 below, getting ready to drop out of the prairies of Canada into the Dakotas. And that cold is going to continue to expand south and eastward here, coming in two different waves. And towards the middle of next week, we're even going to see a piece of the polar vortex, which is going to feed into our storm that's going to be tracking through the mid-Atlantic and Northeast states. And a combination of the cold and the wind and the moisture is going to lead to a very tricky situation to forecast here. So you can see it is nice and warm in Florida. It's balmy in Louisiana, Mardi Gras season. It's just downright hot in South Texas, deep South Texas, and northeastern Mexico. But you don't have to go too far north before it gets brutally colder, as temperatures feel like they're going to be in the teens to 20s below. So as you can imagine, it's a colorful map here for the middle of February. And the current hazards map shows all kinds of activity going on between winter storm warnings in northern New England and upstate New York and across parts of the interior West, to flash flood watches from Arkansas up in the southwestern PA, flash flood warnings buffeting the northern Tennessee, southern Kentucky border here, where we've had extreme amounts of rain. And we do have advisories for more winter weather stretching from the north central states into the eastern Great Lakes. High wind advisories across the northeast and mid-Atlantic, and gusty winds expected as well across portions of the deep south and southwestern Texas. So as much as I want to get detailed with everything, what I do want to talk about are kind of two main things. Number one, I want to talk about what this storm is going to do as far as wreaking havoc. Then number two, I'm going to talk about winter weather with this storm. And then number three, I'm going to talk about the next system and the temperatures that are going to follow it. This is our current visible satellite, and a lot of the country is covered in cloud cover, as you can imagine here, except for the southwest. You can see where our storm system is feeding moisture in from the Gulf of America all the way up into East Texas and into Arkansas. And where there's breaks in the cloud cover is where things are expected to explode as the day wears on. This is a mesoscale GOES image here. This is a loop showing where the area of the heaviest rain is across the midsection of the country here, across Kentucky and northern Tennessee. And then you can see there are breaks in the cloud cover, and where the sun is popping out, where we have the southerly flow and wind flow aloft picking up, we are expected to see storms erupting here as the day wears on. So we're likely going to have a tornado watch. And you can see here, this will probably be issued in the next couple of hours. If you're watching this evening, I'm sure we're going to have one. And probably not a particularly dangerous situation tornado watch, but a tornado watch that needs to be taken seriously, as we certainly have the potential for some powerful winds over 100 miles per hour, and also some big hail as well, right along this frontal boundary, which stretches across southeastern Arkansas to about the Memphis area and into the Mississippi Delta region. And this area is going to continue to move eastward as the night wears on. Here's a look at the latest HRRR model showing where our low pressure system is this afternoon. You see 1002 here over Arkansas, and it's feeding that warm air up from the Western Gulf. And as that low continues to track northeastward, it is going to strengthen. The wind field is going to strengthen as well. And behind the storm, the cold air is going to be forcing itself farther south. We're going to see an even bigger contrast, leading to even more unsettled weather here as the night wears on. So we're going to have a line of storms that comes with the front. Heavy rain that expands up into the Mason-Dixon region, heavy snow and ice across the interior of the Northeast. And on the backside of our storm, rain changes over to snow in places like the Boot Heel of Missouri and northeastern Arkansas. We see that change over in Indiana, northwest Ohio. But interestingly, because of this low track, rain will make it all the way up to Lake Erie. Meanwhile, back in Indiana and Michigan, it'll be snowing pretty hard as we get to the overnight hours tonight into about 5 in the morning. That storm system continues to move northeast. We will continue to have a threat for some stronger winds along and ahead of our front. During the morning tomorrow, stretching from the mid-Atlantic states down into northern Florida. We are going to see a skinny line of what could be damaging storms moving through in the morning hours and then exiting the coast later in the day. Rain spreads all the way up into central New York and PA, changing over quickly to heavy wet snow. This could cause roads to ice up quickly here at the end of the day tomorrow in a flash freeze situation. So if you are planning to travel at the end of the weekend, be alert for that. And then the cold just continues to funnel on down. You can see how these dashed blue lines are oriented, pushing southeast, allowing the piece of the polar vortex to drop down from Canada into the north central U.S. as we start the new week. And it's going to get colder and colder as the week wears on, and yet more energy from the northwest is going to track down into the plains and pick up more Gulf moisture, and we're going to wash, rinse, and repeat. But the problem with the next system is that it's going to be a lot colder out ahead of it. So rather than a big severe weather outbreak, we're going to be talking about a big threat for damaging cold all the way down to the deep south. Here's a look at what the satellite is expected to look like here this afternoon and evening, and you can see storms are going to blossom very quickly here. There may be a few isolated supercells ahead of the main line that moves in this evening, and those could produce tornadoes with them. And you're going to see here how things very quickly brighten up, indicating very cold cloud cover, very high thunderstorms, and some intense wind likely with these storms as they track eastward here. And I know it's cuts off here, but this threat actually does go all the way up into far southern Kentucky during the early part of this evening and middle Tennessee during the overnight tonight. You're going to see this is going to swing through pretty quickly overnight, moving into Georgia and upstate South Carolina and western North Carolina early tomorrow. And it will extend all the way down into northern Florida, places like Jacksonville and Lake City around lunchtime, Daytona into the afternoon hours. We could see thunderstorms, eastern Carolinas as well. And then we are going to dry out and turn quite a bit colder here. As you can see, the cold air funnels down here by tomorrow night. Here's a look at the Storm Prediction Center, and we'll start here with the overall outlook. It is a level 3 out of 5 enhanced, and it covers the entire state of Mississippi, much of southeastern Arkansas, northern and central Louisiana, the northern Florida parishes, over into western and southern Alabama, into northwest Florida overnight tonight, and into western Tennessee. The slight risk for severe weather extends not far from Bowling Green and Paducah, and a marginal risk all the way up close to the Ohio River here. So a large area is under the gun here for severe weather during the late afternoon hours near the Mississippi River, and then during the overnight hours across the rest of the deep south here, and even towards morning in places like Atlanta and Columbus, Georgia, and perhaps all the way to Panama City, Florida here, and that includes New Orleans as well. I'm going to take this back here a little bit and show you the tornado outlook. And the area that's in the hatched here, which of course is much of that enhanced region, has at least a 10% chance for tornadoes, but also the possibility for a stronger tornado, EF2, EF3. Those are the ones that have winds that may exceed 120, 130 miles per hour. And a lot of these, unfortunately, are going to come at night in Mississippi. So we need to be on the lookout for these. There will be watches and warnings issued. We're going to talk about that. In addition, as the line consolidates and the tornado threat starts to drop a little bit, we have a large area that has a 45% chance or higher of seeing devastating winds. And that area stretches across eastern Mississippi, western Alabama, down into the Florida-Alabama area here during the overnight hours tonight, as well as our storm is going to be off to the races. There will be a threat for hail as well here this afternoon and evening, especially with those storms that fire up ahead of our main line. but that chance right now is limited to about a 5% chance. Now, tomorrow, the threat for severe weather is not completely gone. We have two areas we're going to monitor for tornadoes. We'll start with a slight risk area, and that includes the eastern panhandle of Florida to Jacksonville, southern Georgia, very close to the border here with South Carolina. We also have a marginal risk that extends up through Columbia and Charlotte, Charleston, Wilmington, Raleigh, Norfolk, and even up into the Delmarva. This is a place that saw heavy snow a few days ago, and we'll likely see heavy snow again here next week. But in between, we have that threat for severe weather that extends all the way up into Delaware, and that includes some tornadoes as well. So I know it's cut off here, and but it includes southern Delaware, eastern and southern Maryland, the southern half of the Delmarva, eastern Virginia, all the way to Richmond, believe it or not, Raleigh-Durham area, eastern North Carolina, and then a second area of potential tornadoes here, and a significant chance for severe wind in the southern portion of this area where we have that slight risk. So this is going to roll through quickly in the morning. Then things are going to be quieter as we get to next week. I don't think we're going to be talking a lot of severe weather at that point. You can see our tornado parameters. This factors in wind shear, and that is rotation in the atmosphere from the ground up. And when these numbers come up, that's when the wind shear is stronger. You can see as we head to about 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon, the values are coming up significantly here along our boundary across central and eastern parts of Arkansas, not including Little Rock, though. It will be to the east of Little Rock. And as we head into the evening, you can see our values continue to climb across northern Louisiana and northwestern Mississippi, coming to an apex here at about 6 to 7 o'clock this evening in northwest Mississippi, including the Memphis area. Then as the night wears on, the chance for discrete supercells that produce tornadoes is a little bit lower, but there will still be enough wind energy here to produce severe weather. And the southern part of this area still has some tornado potential with it, including the Louisiana Lake Pontchartrain area here after midnight tonight. So even though kind of the initial part of this outbreak is likely to be in the Delta region here late today and especially this evening, there's still a potential for overnight tornadoes down to the Gulf Coast region here. And that actually continues into the overnight hours into western Florida, the Panhandle region, and even far southern Alabama. Now, tomorrow, our risk for tornadoes is going to be lower, but not zero. Northern Florida and southeastern Georgia in particular, but we also have to keep an eye on things in the eastern Carolinas for a brief tornado. I don't think those are going to look like the ones we see here this evening, but we still need to be mindful of that potential. By the time this system gets down into central Florida, our parameters do drop off significantly around the Tampa Bay area tomorrow afternoon, and South Florida should avoid any significant severe weather. So this storm has a history of severe weather. In fact, we did have some low-end tornadoes in Ventura County near Oxnard in California, along with the flooding in California here a couple of days ago. That storm now, of course, picking up Gulf moisture and tracking northeast. Pretty classic setup here for severe weather. This is a look at helicity. This is turning in the atmosphere just to give you an idea of where wind damage could be highest. And it's a pretty significant region of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama and western Tennessee that has this risk. The risk does come down some tomorrow across the Carolinas and farther south in Florida, but again, just one model run, so I would not take to heart the exact areas that have the pink and the purple are going to be the worst, but you can see the Memphis area certainly is under the gun, northwest Mississippi under the gun, Jackson, Mississippi could be as well. Certainly Rolling Fork, Vicksburg, Yazoo City, areas that are known to get stronger tornadoes are in this area here that needs to be watched. But also what needs to be watched is the Birmingham area all the way over to close to Atlanta. And certainly Montgomery down to the farther south and east, all the way down to about Dothan and Enterprise, Alabama. And even Mobile, Biloxi, and New Orleans should be on the lookout here for this potential for severe weather. This is what the HRRR model is showing as far as what the radar is going to look like. And I apologize here, I got a little bit trigger happy. 6 o'clock this evening, that's when things really get cranking here between Pine Bluff and Greenville. You can see hatched areas showing potentially some very intense storms here. So the worst of it's going to be early tonight, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, rolling through Mississippi, and then continuing into Alabama overnight tonight, and then moving into Georgia by daybreak tomorrow. Here's a look farther north, and flooding has been a big issue, unfortunately. Now, the area of heavy rain does lift north of this. We get into the warm sector, and then we could see damaging storms overnight tonight in the same areas that have gotten flooding, which is the last thing, of course, you want to hear. But Nashville, under the gun here around midnight tonight, maybe a little earlier than midnight. Lexington, Somerset here just after midnight. And these storms are going to weaken some when they get into West Virginia, East Tennessee, and southwestern Virginia. But we're not totally out of the woods for severe weather at this point. And then you see this area here, this could go over to snow early in the day tomorrow along the Ohio River and even all the way down into parts of Middle Tennessee. So we go flooding to severe weather to windy, cold, and potentially some snow falling here in less than a 24-hour stretch of weather. Here's a look at Georgia and South Carolina real fast for you here. Scattered showers tonight, then the big storms move in overnight around Atlanta. You'll see they could hold together as they hit Macon, Warner Robins, and Augusta as well, and even the Midlands of South Carolina tomorrow morning. Now, this is not a great setup for tornadoes, but we certainly could still have some strong winds as the jet does kick these eastward pretty quickly. So this system is modeled to move through here in the morning and be off the coast by mid-afternoon. It could be a little bit quicker or a little bit slower, so keep that in mind. If it is slower, we do need to be a little bit more mindful here, especially in Florida, for severe weather in the afternoon. But it looks like Daytona gets it around 2 to 3 o'clock tomorrow, according to the HER model, and this is going to fall apart as it heads down into South Florida later tomorrow evening and tomorrow night. Looking farther north here across the Carolinas, again, I don't think this is a major outbreak of severe weather, but we are going to have some storms to keep an eye on overnight tonight around Virginia Beach. And then tomorrow morning, things are going to line up from north to south, crossing I-81 in the morning, I-95 around lunchtime or early afternoon, and then heading towards the coast here later in the day. Even the Outer Banks could have some damaging winds around the middle of tomorrow afternoon. Then it turns colder and drier with mountain upslope snow showers here tomorrow night, especially up in West Virginia. So that is a look at what's going on here with the warm side of the system. We don't want to ignore the cold side here. You can see as this low tracks up through the Ohio Valley into upstate New York tomorrow, we're going to have significant amounts of ice from PA up into Maine, sleet and freezing rain, heavy snow along the U.S.-Canadian border and up to the St. Lawrence tomorrow morning. And winds are going to crank up with this, turning into near blizzard conditions across southeast Canada, the Maritimes, northern New England here, and back across the eastern lakes as well. This system leaves us, then we've got another big one to watch here. You can see a big area of high pressure, 1053 here on Monday night over Saskatchewan, Canada. You see moisture in this ribbon that comes out of the Rockies into the plains, and that is where our next storm system sets up. It's a classic battle here of Arctic air dropping all the way down into Texas and moisture coming up from the Gulf. And the GFS really does spit out a lot of snow here. In fact, it's puking snow. I hate that phrase, but I'm going to say it anyway. Across the Ozarks here in the afternoon on Tuesday, this has some very high upside potential to it. There's ice potential in Oklahoma as temperatures are going to crash. We may even see a little bit of ice all the way down into far northern Texas here near DFW on Tuesday night. But at that point, we're losing most of our moisture. Now, as this moves east, I don't think we're going to see a repeat severe weather outbreak. In fact, the cold comes in faster than the moisture loads up. But as this tracks east Wednesday, it could be a significant snowstorm in the mountains of North Carolina, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Virginia. There could be significant ice across the Piedmont area, including Raleigh and Charlotte and Greensboro. There could be heavy rain for the coastal section here. And then as this low tracks up, it's going to get drawn by this polar vortex. Part of the polar vortex is going to actually try to draw this back towards the coast. And we don't know exactly how this plays out yet. I've seen some different scenarios, but as this low deepens off the coast, this is the time of year when blizzards become more common in the Northeast. Nor'easters are actually fairly common later in winter as the ocean water continues to cool down. And so for now, if you're in Maryland, Delaware, Jersey, Eastern PA, New York City, Long Island, and Southern New England, you definitely want to be watching this one, as if it shifts westward, we could be talking a very substantial amount of snow. It could shift east as well, which would mean we have a near miss, but the GFS is getting super excited about this and continues to show a pretty significant amount of snow across the Northeast. And there are other models that are different, but showing the similar setup, not same, but similar setup. This is snow in Nashville on Wednesday. This is heavy snow in Asheville, North Carolina, and then stretching into Virginia. Now, the European is coming in a little farther south with this snow. It does change it to ice in Raleigh, but starts as snow. I personally think because of this low track, we're talking ice in the Carolinas, we're talking snow in Virginia and the mountains. And the European indicates this is going to be a big snowfall for the Delmarva and New Jersey, especially coastal Jersey, in places that really haven't gotten a lot of snow. If you think about it, we've kind of had a lot of close calls and a lot of misses. But the European says it will clip southern New England and then move away. Another model I was looking at here, the Icon model, is if you're a snow lover in the Northeast, you will get very excited by this, but it is showing some extreme snowfall amounts from the DC area on Wednesday night up into New York City on Thursday morning and continuing into southern New England. And this shows an incredible storm. And this is possible. We don't want to write this opportunity off at this point. So as far as snow potential goes, here's what the GFS is showing, potentially 1 to 2 feet from Kansas into Missouri here, Monday night, Tuesday, and Tuesday night. Now that's a GFS model. I'm going to stop this loop here and just go to a single image so it doesn't move on me here. Let me do 96 hours. So you can see this is what is being shown in about 24 hours, as much as 28 inches of snow near Springfield, Missouri, which is pretty chaotic here. That's all in 24 hours. Now, this is just one model. If you look at the European over the same time frame, it still shows heavy snow, albeit it's about half as much across the same exact area. If we take a look here at the Icon model, it's showing that heavy snow moving on a little bit quicker, but still showing over a foot in southern Missouri. So this would be a really big storm for this area. The Canadian model does have this a little farther south, not quite as heavy, but showing substantial snow in places like Tulsa and Joplin and Fayetteville, Arkansas. So you get the picture here. It's keying in on an area that's likely to get it, but the details, of course, still need to be ironed out. Now I'm going to take you south and east here to the Ohio Valley. And here's the big one, as you can see. And as we move this along in time, you can see that the heavy snow is oriented towards Kentucky, towards southern Indiana and Illinois. Even St. Louis has some significant potential as this system comes through on Wednesday into Wednesday night in Virginia. Here's the GFS. Here's the European. And it's, of course, got this a lot colder in the mountains of North Carolina, which would be really bad, unfortunately. Here is the Icon model. It's the German model. It's a little farther north. Actually, southern Ohio gets in on this. Southern Indiana gets in on this. Cincinnati has some substantial snow potential, at least considering what we've had so far this winter. And here's the Canadian model, which is actually kind of killing this system somewhat. Not completely killing it, but removing a lot of its high-end potential as it comes across. So that's a possibility as well. All right, I'm going to take you all east here into the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic area, and then we'll go up to the Northeast. And you can see here, as the storm moves in on Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, it could dump a ton of snow somewhere in the Mid-Atlantic region. I know we saw a few model runs ago, the GFS had this down in North Carolina. It seems to be kind of aimed more at Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland, and southern Delaware, but it could still shift north or south, either way you look at it here. In fact, if we take this further out, you can see that this has some pretty substantial snow coming down across Delaware, 20 inches in Dover, and Milford and those areas. It's got 18 inches around Cape May, 16 inches in Atlantic City, Toms River about 15, New York City right around a foot, and Long Island close to a foot as well. Now less when we get north and west of I-95, but this is an I-95 special if this in fact works out the way that the models are showing here. It can change. So that's the GFS. Here's the European, and it's a little slower. It is not as heavy across New England or New York City, but it definitely has a big snowstorm in Richmond. 13 to 16 inches, maybe 16 inches around Stafford and Woodbridge and those areas just south of DC. Southern Maryland, 16 inches. So you can see here, major models all showing a foot or more potential snowfall here. This is the Icon model. This is where it gets chaotic here. The Icon brings that low farther northwest and dumps historic snow on New York City area. We're talking 3 feet for some of these places. Is this possible? Absolutely, it is possible. Is this my forecast right now? No, of course not. I'm not a crazy dude, but I will say this. We're going to see this shifting up and down here over the coming days, and just be aware of what you see out there. People are going to put the latest models, and they are going to shuffle, okay? That does happen all the time. But as this system comes off the coast, it has a lot of potential to produce a lot of snow. But the big question mark is it going to be over Maryland or over New York City? Or is it going to end up just offshore? And I don't know the answer to that just yet. So stay tuned is all I've got to share with you here. Canadian model, you can see it's got close to a foot here. Delaware up to central Jersey, up to Long Island. Got a few inches across central New England here. But you can see that certainly nothing like what the Icon is showing. The other thing we got to be concerned about is ice. And obviously we've got to deal with that with our first storm here tonight into tomorrow across much of the interior Northeast, even into portions of New England. Here's our next system. And I want to zoom in here on the Carolinas so that you all can see what it's showing, because this could be very substantial. And I'm in Raleigh, so of course I'm concerned about it, okay, for Wednesday and Wednesday night. You can see start time approximately early in the day on Wednesday near Hickory, foothills region, and then afternoon around Greensboro, and then evening around Greenville, Raleigh, and even Virginia Beach. So this is what the latest GFS is showing us here. Potentially half an inch or more of ice. This is just one model. I'm going to take off the loop here and just show you the image here of what it's showing here. I want to show you some other models as well. Here's the European, and you can see it's a little farther south, actually crushing upstate South Carolina, Charlotte, and the Sandhills region here with what could be several days of power losses if this is correct, just based on how much ice is expected here. So a very significant storm. This is the European. Here's the Canadian model. And unfortunately, I can't get it to zoom in. I'm going to try, but not at the same level. But you can see Canadian model showing close to an inch of ice in places like Wilson and Greenville and much of the interior eastern portion of North Carolina and northeastern South Carolina as well. And it's not just the southeast that sees this potential for ice, but parts of the deep south, we have to be mindful of it as well. Mainly Tuesday and into early Wednesday here, northeast Texas, southern Arkansas, and those regions. So a lot to talk about for sure. And temperatures are also going to be a hot topic, or maybe not a hot topic, but a cold one as we get into next week. Look at the cold coming down here, and you're going to see the plains just get blasted early next week. It gets a lot colder by Tuesday, minus 40 to minus 50 in North Dakota Tuesday morning. And that cold settles into Oklahoma and North Texas by the middle of next week, with sub-zero temperatures all the way down to the Northeast Panhandle and single digits in places like Wichita Falls and Tulsa and Oklahoma City and St. Louis. We see 30s down to Houston here and even colder at night. Really cold here. This is one model, but just brutal here. Omaha, 30 degrees or more below zero. That is not the wind chill. That is the air temperature here for Friday morning. And it's not just going to be the central states that feel it, but the eastern U.S. gets colder as well. In stages here, but behind our storm, after it leaves here, we're going to see a very cold Friday and Saturday setting up here. And some of us in the mountains of North Carolina will have sub-zero temperatures Saturday morning. Some of us in Illinois could be as cold as 20 to 30 below zero. So it's coming, folks, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. Just be prepared. But as always, I'm going to do my best to keep you all in the know. I do have to travel again, my last trade show of the winter season, so I'm going to be gone for a couple of days. So my updates are going to be a little sparse, but I expect to be back here Tuesday afternoon. So I thank you all for your time today. I want to give all the credit and all the honor and glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who gives me this gift to be able to share with you all these weather hazards. As a degreed meteorologist, this is my gift. Everybody here has a gift. And I love going to the Bible in times of despair because it's just there to bring hope to all of us. Revelation 21, King James Version says, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain. For the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful." And to steal a couple lines from Johnny Cash, I want to ask you this. Will you partake of that last offered cup, or disappear into the potter's ground when the man comes around? So I hope that encourages somebody today to understand that there is a new heaven coming. Will there be no more pain and no more tears, no more suffering? All you have to do is accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, and he is the answer. And I wanted to share that great news with you today, not because it has anything to do with the weather, but because it is what I've been called to share with you all today. So I thank you for your time. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Please be safe down south. Please heed all the warnings here tonight, and hope we all come out of it and this ends up not being as bad as it looks. But as always, I thank you for your time today and ask you to become a subscriber and follower of Josh's Severe Weather as I update you on the latest. Hope everyone has a great weekend. God bless you.